Let's be real. Some people are experts at hiding how they truly feel about you. Instead of telling you outright, they disguise their dislike behind a smile, a shallow compliment, or forced politeness. I've been there too. I thought someone was a friend, only to find out they were secretly hoping for my failure. It's brutal. But here's the hard truth. If you don't pick up on the signs, you'll waste your time and energy on people who don't actually care about you. So let's cut through the BS. Today, we're going to dig into the signs that someone might dislike you, but is hiding it. And we're starting with a big one that often flies under the radar: joking about your flaws. Some people use humor as a weapon. They'll joke about your quirks, your mistakes, your insecurities, and they'll do it with a big grin, saying, "Just kidding." But let's not kid ourselves. These jokes are often more than playful banter. They're calculated digs, little ways to test your boundaries and see how much disrespect you'll take. True friends, they don't need to tear you down to feel good. They celebrate your strengths, and if they do point out a weakness, it's to help you grow, not to make you the punchline. So, if you find yourself constantly on the receiving end of these jokes, it's time to stop laughing along. Ask yourself if this is really funny, or if there's something deeper going on here. Because when it comes to respect, it's better to stand up for yourself than to be reduced to someone's punchline. Let's dive in and talk about why recognizing these subtle digs matters, how to set boundaries, and why you deserve relationships that uplift, not undermine. We all know that one person who loves to joke, especially when the joke is at your expense. They'll point out your quirky habits, minor mistakes, all with a smile, saying, "I'm just kidding." At first it seems harmless, but don't fool yourself. These jokes are often more than just playful teasing. They're carefully crafted criticisms meant to chip away at your self-esteem, bit by bit. Imagine you're hanging out with a group of friends, and one of them constantly points out little things about you, all in the name of joking around. They might tease you about the way you speak, mock your taste in music, or throw in a jab about your work. Initially, it feels harmless. Everyone's laughing, so you laugh along too. But then you realize the jokes are always aimed at what they see as your flaws, never anything positive. They never tease you about your creativity or achievements, only your quirks and perceived weaknesses. A friend of mine, Sarah, went through this when one of her close friends kept joking about her introverted nature. Every time they were with others, her friend would say things like, "Oh, don't mind Sarah. She's too shy to even order her own coffee." At first, Sarah laughed along, not wanting to make a fuss. But as these jokes continued, she started doubting herself and even wondered if she was too withdrawn. It wasn't until she finally spoke up and asked her friend to stop that she felt a sense of relief. True friends don't make you feel small for being who you are. Let's be clear. Real friends don't need to put you down to feel better about themselves. They celebrate your strengths and help you work through your weaknesses. Letting these kinds of jokes slide may seem like the easiest route, but it's a slippery slope. The more you allow these small jabs to go unchecked, the more they'll push until you start doubting yourself, all because you don't want to seem too sensitive. As we reflect on how so-called jokes can chip away at our confidence, it's important to remember that disrespect can also show up in more subtle, nonverbal ways. Humor disguised as criticism is one form of hidden hostility, but sometimes the signs are quieter, like the avoidance of physical contact. Just as words can be used to test our boundaries, body language can send powerful signals about someone's true feelings. Let's dive into why physical touch matters and how avoiding it can reveal deeper issues in a relationship. Let's get real. When someone avoids physical contact with you, it's like the elephant in the room no one wants to talk about. And no, we're not just talking about romantic relationships here. Physical touch, whether it's a handshake, a pat on the back, or a simple shoulder tap is a basic form of human connection. It helps us build trust, show empathy, and create bonds. So, what does it mean when someone goes out of their way to dodge even the most casual touch? It sends a loud, unspoken message that they're uncomfortable around you. And it's a sign. I remember a former coworker who would literally step back every time I went for a handshake or a friendly touch on the shoulder. At first, I thought I was overthinking it, but then I realized they had no problem being warm and open with everyone else. With me, though, it was as if I had some contagious condition. I soon understood that their lack of physical contact wasn't just a quirky trait. It was a deliberate. Here's the controversial truth. Touch is a natural part of human interaction. When someone regularly avoids it with you, they're communicating discomfort or distance. Sure, some people aren't naturally touchy, and that's perfectly okay. But when they're fine hugging others or shaking hands with ease, yet stiffen up around you, it's a warning sign. They may not dislike you enough to say it outright. Let's be honest, we've all been on both sides of this. Maybe you've held back from a handshake or leaned away when someone got too close because you just weren't feeling it. Or maybe you've been on the receiving end, wondering why someone seems to flinch every time they're near you. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable, and often it reveals that the relationship isn't as solid as you'd like to believe. Here's the deeper truth. Physical contact is a cornerstone of human connection. It's how we show trust, warmth, and understanding. When someone consistently avoids touching you, it's not just about the touch itself. They're avoiding closeness, intimacy, and emotional vulnerability. They're putting up a barrier, both physically and emotionally, and that's a clear sign of a deeper issue in the relationship. I've learned to pay close attention to these signs, even though it's not always easy to face what they mean. There was a time I brushed off someone's reluctance to get close as just their personality, but as I thought more about it, I realized it was about us and the distance between us. Confronting the situation led to some tough conversations, and in some cases, it even ended the relationship. But it freed me from the constant frustration of wondering why things felt off. Here's the takeaway. Don't ignore the signs when someone consistently avoids physical contact with you. It's not just a preference. It's a statement about their comfort and connection with you. If you notice this pattern, don't shy away from addressing it. This could lead to a deeper understanding, or it might reveal that the relationship isn't as strong as you hoped. Either way, facing the truth is better than staying in denial. Remember, you deserve relationships where physical contact happens naturally and comfortably. Whether it's a friendly hug, a handshake, or just sitting close without awkwardness, these small gestures build trust and closeness. If someone consistently pulls away, it's a sign that something's off. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions, and if needed, make the hard decisions. Life's too short to surround yourself with people who keep you at arm's length, both literally and figuratively. Just as the lack of physical contact can signal discomfort or distance, there's another way people can reveal hidden negativity: through their words. Sometimes, the hurt isn't in what's unsaid, but in what's wrapped up in a false compliment. Backhanded compliments can feel like praise on the surface, but they're often laced with subtle insults. Let's explore how these disguised remarks can undermine confidence and what they reveal about the person giving them. Have you ever poured your heart and soul into something only to receive a compliment that feels like a slap in the face? Like, after giving a major presentation you worked on for weeks, a colleague says, "Oh, pretty good," for someone without much experience. It sounds positive on the surface, but those last few words reveal an underlying judgment. It's as if they're trying to compliment you, But really, they're just reinforcing their belief that you're not quite up to standard. I remember a story from a friend who tirelessly worked on a big project at her company. She finally presented it to the team, and her boss, a person she admired, said, "Good job, especially for someone your age." It stung. Instead of being recognized for her hard work, she felt dismissed, as if her skills and effort didn't really matter because of her age. That moment was a turning point for her, and she realized that a sincere compliment would be straightforward, without subtle digs. True support doesn't come with conditions or hidden insults. These backhanded compliments aren't meant to lift you up. They're designed to keep you in your place. They come from insecurity, from people who feel threatened by your potential. So they offer a subtle critique, ensuring you don't get too confident. It's a power move, a way to remind you that they're above you, even if only in their own minds. When you recognize these comments for what they are, a reflection of their insecurity, not a judgment of your worth, they lose their sting. You can choose not to absorb these disguised insults. And next time someone throws a backhanded compliment your way, don't just brush it off. Try responding with, "Thanks, but what do you mean by that?" It catches them off guard and shows them you're not playing along with their hidden agenda. Then one day, you check your phone over the weekend and see that a group of friends went to a concert you would have loved to attend. But there's one unfortunate thing. They didn't invite you. You feel the familiar sting of exclusion and wonder. Did they forget? Or did they assume I'd be busy? Later, when you casually bring it up, they brush it off with excuses like, "Oh, it was last minute. We thought you had other plans." But deep down, you know that if they truly wanted you there, they would have made sure you knew about it. A friend of mine, Tom, went through this repeatedly with a group he considered close friends. He kept finding out that they made plans without him, and each time he mentioned it, they dismissed it. Eventually, Tom decided to ask them directly if there was any reason he was being left out. Some of them got defensive, but others admitted they simply didn't think to include him because they assumed he wouldn't be interested. This experience made Tom reevaluate those friendships and realize he deserved friends who wouldn't make him feel like an afterthought. Letting these exclusions slide only gives them permission to keep treating you as an afterthought. True friends don't accidentally leave you out. They want you there because they value your presence. If you're constantly the one being excluded, it's time to address the situation, even if it makes things a bit uncomfortable. You deserve to be around people who make an effort to include you. When you find someone worth keeping, hold on to them. And for those who vanish from your life, let them go. They've already shown you their true colors. Now, let's talk about those who talk behind your back. Gossip is a social poison, spreading like wildfire and leaving relationships in ashes. The thing about gossip is, it's never as harmless as people like to pretend. When a friend talks behind your back, they're not just sharing a story. They're actively chipping away at your trust, damaging your reputation, and undermining your relationships. Let's be real. If they're bad-mouthing you, it's a clear sign they don't respect you, no matter how friendly they seem on the surface. I've been the target of gossip, and believe me, it's one of the most painful experiences. There was a time I confided in someone I considered a close friend. I shared something deeply personal, something that felt like a weight on my shoulders, trusting they'd keep it private. But within days, details of our conversation started making the rounds, distorted and exaggerated. It was like a twisted game of telephone, except the message wasn't just lost. It was weaponized. My vulnerability became their entertainment. Here's the harsh truth. People who talk about you behind your back aren't just venting or expressing concerns. They're playing a power game. Gossip is their way of boosting themselves up by tearing you down, all without facing you directly. It's cowardly, manipulative, and toxic. They're not only wrecking your reputation, they're shattering the very foundation of trust that any real relationship relies on. And let's get one thing straight. People who gossip about others to you will gossip about you to others. It's a pattern, not a one-off thing. I've seen it time and again. Someone who's quick to spill everyone else's secrets suddenly goes silent around you. Guess what? They're likely spilling your secrets when you're not around. That's betrayal of the worst kind, done in the shadows, giving you no chance to defend yourself or even know what's being said. This is where it gets personal. I once confronted a friend who had been bad-mouthing me. I expected an apology or at least an explanation, but instead, they brushed it off as harmless talk. Here's the thing, though. Gossip is never harmless. It's pure betrayal, plain and simple, and it says far more about the person spreading it than it ever could about the person being talked about. Reflecting on each of these behaviors has made me realize how crucial it is to surround myself with people who genuinely value, uplift, and respect me. Over time, I've come to see that subtle digs disguised as jokes, compliments that feel like slaps, or the sting of exclusion are more than just minor offenses. They're red flags that highlight a lack of true connection. I've learned that allowing these behaviors to slide, whether out of a desire to keep the peace or avoid confrontation, ultimately erodes my sense of self and weakens my relationships. When someone constantly jokes about my flaws, it's not funny. It's a test to see how much disrespect I'll tolerate. I used to laugh along, convincing myself it was all in good humor, until I realized the effect it had on my confidence. Now, I know that real friends don't need to put me down to feel better about themselves. They encourage and celebrate my strengths. This realization has taught me the value of setting boundaries, as well as the courage to call out behavior that crosses the line. Backhanded compliments are another subtle yet damaging form of manipulation. They look like praise, but feel like judgment, leaving me questioning my abilities. Understanding that these comments often stem from the other person's insecurities helps me see them for what they are, a reflection of their own issues, not a measure of my worth. Learning to respond to these comments with confidence, or even confronting them, has been empowering. Experiencing social exclusion and selective availability has shown me how painful it is to be overlooked or deprioritized by people I considered friends. When I was excluded from gatherings, or only met with "I'm too busy" excuses, I couldn't help but feel undervalued. But instead of letting these moments diminish my self-worth, I've learned to recognize them as signals that maybe those relationships aren't as strong as I thought. Now, I focus my time and energy on friends who make an effort to include me and who are genuinely present when it matters. The lack of physical contact in a friendship, even something as simple as a handshake or a hug, speaks volumes. When someone avoids these small gestures, it's often a sign of emotional distance or discomfort. Instead of brushing off these cues, I've learned to pay attention to them, understanding that physical connection is a natural part of close relationships. If someone consistently avoids it, it may be time to reassess that connection. Lastly, gossiping is one of the most toxic behaviors I've encountered. When I confided in someone, only to have them share my personal struggles as casual conversation with others, it shattered my trust. I've come to understand that anyone who gossips about others will likely gossip about me. Now, I'm cautious, choosing to surround myself with people who respect privacy and avoid unnecessary drama. Through each of these experiences, I've drawn a simple but powerful lesson. I deserve relationships that are built on respect, authenticity, and mutual support. Life is too short to invest in people who don't truly value me. By setting boundaries, letting go of toxic relationships, and nurturing bonds with people who genuinely care, I'm creating a circle of trust that empowers me to be my best self. And that's worth far more than holding on to connections that only drain my energy and self-esteem. As we wrap up, remember this: your self-respect is invaluable, and recognizing subtle signs of disrespect is a powerful step toward protecting it. Surround yourself with people who genuinely appreciate and celebrate you, who lift you up rather than bring you down. Life is too precious to spend it around toxic influences. Seek out relationships grounded in mutual respect, positivity, and unwavering support. Stand tall, speak up, and always remember your worth. You deserve friends who see the best in you and help you become your best self. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.